the next topic on today's podcast. Big news in Montreal. Nick Suzuki recently named the 31st captain in the history of the Montreal Canadiens. When you look at this roster, Lepore, you go down the list and you're trying to think like who else could have been named captain here. I think they made the right choice here with Suzuki. They gave him a big contract. He was great in the playoffs a couple of years ago. Coming off, a 60-point season, 61 points, whatever he had. I still think it was slightly disappointing based on, the expectations for this guy. But what do you think, Lepore? Did the Habs make the right choice naming Suzuki their 31st captain?
When I initially saw the tweet come out from Friedman that they had announced Suzuki as captain, I was kind of shocked, and not in a negative way, why'd they do that? But my initial reaction was kind of, what was the hurry? It's kind of how I felt on it. Why not one more year? This team's kind of going through a rebuild right now. We'll see how things go, and then we'll name him captain. But the more I thought about it, this kid, he committed for 8 years. He's going to be a significant piece of this franchise for a long time. It shouldn't matter, but it does. He's a Canadian. He's a Canadian kid. And there's that whole thing of we don't really truly know these players' personalities and what they bring from an emotional standpoint. So who knows this guy's DNA in the locker room and his personality and how he rubs off on people, and if he's a good example for other players. So I have trust in the Montreal Canadiens brass that they have a full and heavy understanding of the type of person, the type of human Nick Suzuki is, and then he can handle this. Because then that's another aspect of it too. Let's face it, being the captain of the Montreal Canadiens is a big deal. If we made the list of, I almost said the worst things to be in pro sports, it'd be Dallas Cowboys quarterback, whatever, anything on the Leafs. And I think people said goalie in Montreal is probably one of the hardest. But man, captain of Montreal is a big deal, and you have to be a certain type of person to be able to handle it. And I've often thought it'd be funny to poll players around the league. Say you play for the St. Louis Blues. Would you want to be captain? I think most players would say yes. I don't think many guys would turn it down. But then pose that same question to the Leafs or Canadians. If a lot of guys are
there'll be some hesitation.
If I want nothing to do with that, I wouldn't be surprised. So I assume that conversation was had with him, that he would be honored to be captain and he would look forward to being captain. And when he gave his interview the other day, he said all the right things. He was poised. He was asked if he plans on learning French, and he said that he's already in the process of doing that. So, he got on the fans' good side with that. So all in all, I think it's cool. They could have went a different route. I guess what other choice they have? Either not name a captain, keep waiting. And then if you look at the vets, it's okay, well, who really would they have named? Gallagher? You know what I mean? I kind of thought a couple of years ago that Gallagher may end up wearing the C at some point for Montreal, but the way his contract currently works and the way the team is going forward, or at least how they appear to be going forward, I'm sure they're probably going to try to get rid of him, as much as that sucks because he's been a piece of Montreal for a long time. So I think that's kind of vanished. But all in all, I like the player. I think it's cool. I think he said all the right things, and I have trust in the Canadiens brass that they named the right guy.
And one thing we should also mention, he's the youngest captain in Habs history at 23 years old, which is pretty interesting.
Even for the league, I think he's bottom 5 in terms of age. Someone posted that.
Yeah, when you go down the list and you look at some of the other vets on this team, as much as I like Brendan Gallagher, heart and soul guy, grit, really, Brendan Gallagher as the captain of the Montreal Canadiens, he had a bad season last year. Nothing was going in for that guy, and I'm sure he's going to bounce back, but couldn't see him as captain. He is an alternate captain along with Joel Edmondson. Shea Weber's not here anymore. And Shea Weber was just a fantastic player. That guy just embodies everything you want in a captain.
100%.
Carey Price, we don't know if we're ever going to see him play a game again, but are we going to get into a situation where he's going to be the captain? It's the Roberto Luongo situation in Vancouver.
Yeah.
So when you go down the list, there weren't really that many options. Like Cole Caulfield, I don't think is quite ready to be the captain. He doesn't strike me as being captain material. And I should mention a quote from Brendan Gallagher on Nick Suzuki. He said, he's the heartbeat of our team. So I trust Brendan Gallagher. All right. He said that Suzuki's the heartbeat of the team. I'm sure at a very young age, he has shown, really good leadership qualities. He's been really good in the playoffs for Montreal, especially the year that they went to the Stanley Cup final and knocked out the Toronto Maple Leafs. Suzuki was excellent in the playoffs. I still want to see a little bit more from him production-wise in the regular season. Like, I want to see him become a point-per-game player at some point. He's not there yet, but I'm sure he will get there. Who knows? The jury's still out on that. So you go down the list of this Habs team, and there's really not that many options. So I do think that they made the right choice naming Nick Suzuki their next captain.
What's your take on this whole trend? And it's happened for a while now, just compared to how we grew up and what we thought a captain was, of these kids being named captain. It seems like now it's moved from that grizzly vet captain guy to just the best young player on the team. And like, I remember, and to think about how weird it is, I remember when Sid was named captain in Pittsburgh, people lost their minds. That how can he be captain? He's young. What has he done? How can he lead a room? Now, if that decision was made, it would totally be expected. Like, people expected Austin Matthews to be named captain. People were just waiting for McDavid to be named captain. Even Brady Tkachuk in Ottawa, everyone knew, like, hey, Tkachuk's going to be the captain. So I don't know. I think there's arguments for both sides. And I've also heard the take that wearing the C doesn't mean what it used to. It's more of like the PR move and all that stuff that like teams go for with like the most popular player, kind of like an Ovechkin type thing. Like, it was kind of funny early in his career. It kind of got delayed with Ovechkin a bit, and it was, you knew it was a matter of time. But I don't know. Take your pick on what you want. Like, I'm old school. I'd still rather have, kind of like you touched on, like the Shea Weber, and Shea Weber's a really good player, but I'd rather have the Shea Weber than just like the best young player, as an example. Because even too, and comment down below what you think about this one, but it takes pressure off that young player. You know what I mean? Or is that a discussion? Does John Tavares wearing the C take pressure off of Austin Matthews? Just like a few less questions to answer afterwards. And because Tavares is older, he can handle it better. I don't know. It really is an interesting discussion with regard to like who wears the C, especially in the big markets, as I touched on earlier.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting because you go down the list, Lepore. There have been a lot of guys who've been named captain at a young age. Like, you look at Crosby, Jonathan Toews, Landeskog,
yeah,
Connor McDavid. There's probably some guys that I'm missing here, but I feel like it's almost kind of like 50-50 throughout the NHL. Either you have that young stud as your captain, like the next superstar on your team, or you have like, the grizzled vet.
Yeah,
and not saying that like John Tavares is a grizzled vet, like he's still like a really good player, but obviously if you ask Leafs Nation, I would say that probably 50% would say that Matthews deserves the C over John Tavares.
Yeah, but again, see how it works. Like, if you ask them, like, I agree with you, you'd probably get that answer. But what are they basing that answer on? The play on the ice. Well, the play on the ice is not about leadership or personality or being an example.
You're right, 100%.
Right? So I don't know. Like, I'd like to know who's probably the oldest captain in the league. I guess Bergeron. It's got to be Bergeron.
Yeah, Bergeron is definitely up there. I'd have to look that up, but he's got to be up there because he's like 36 now.
You can't get much better than that when it comes to a captain, to be fair.
Like, just a phenomenal captain. But yeah, you know what? I think the Habs made the right decision here. They're still in the middle of their rebuild, but we'll see how this goes. So